This video is brought to you by Arconviox. Arconviox reminds you not to smoke. Smoking ain't cool, kids. Some say there's nothing quite like listening to music on vinyl, myself included. The video game analog to that is playing retro games, and for me specifically, NES games. Sure, there are modern alternatives and updates to the old franchises, but it's not the same as playing the original version. In some cases, however, a game not only gets an excellent port, but a great remake as well. DuckTales for the NES just happens to be one of those games. Let's get this out of the way first. I never actually played DuckTales for the NES growing up. I remember seeing its sequel on the local video rental store shelf, but that's the closest I ever came to playing it. If it's any consolation, I was, and still am, a huge NES fan, and also a fan of the syndicated cartoon on which the game was based. It seems like a match made in heaven for me, and it is. At first I didn't really see what all the fuss was about, but that's because I didn't understand how the controls worked. Who can blame me though? It's not very intuitive for the pogo jump controls to be down and B. But once I mastered it, I was jumping across thorny walkways and stomping bees like nobody's business. And that's when I realized what made this game so beloved to many. I got a real sense of exploration from these levels. The tunes are among the best on the system. And the graphics are good even if the color scheme doesn't always match the shows. All in all, a great game. But you knew that already. What you might not have known is that DuckTales was ported to the original Game Boy in 1990. I wasn't expecting anything nearly as fun as the NES version, but I was pleasantly surprised by not only its faithfulness to the original, but also a key improvement. This port features all the same levels as the original title, but simplifies them for the Game Boy's more limited hardware. The levels are more linear, but they present a bit of a new challenge to those familiar with the original's layout. What I really like though is a pogo jump has been simplified to just the press of the B button. Sometimes the hit detection is a bit unfair, but all in all, I'd say it's about the same difficulty as the NES version. I did have a hard time finding one-ups though. What I found really lacking was the soundtrack. The Game Boy sports the same tunes, albeit run through a dot matrix stereo sound. Not terrible, but also not the best part of the game. What's not terrible though is DuckTales Remastered. WayForward has recreated the NES classic with beautifully drawn 2D sprites that faithfully recreate the art style of the cartoon. It contains all the levels of the original plus 2 more. However, some of the layout is different but not totally unfamiliar. They got the controls down almost perfectly. I like that they gave the player the option to go with the harder NES way of pogoing or the easier Game Boy version. What I don't like about the controls, however, is that in the NES and Game Boy version they would count falling as a jump, and thus you can perform a pogo jump while falling. Not so when remastered. Every time you want to pogo, whether falling or jumping, you must press the jump button. It took my muscle memory a while to get used to this change, but once it did, things became much smoother. The length of the game is both its biggest strength and greatest weakness. If you've ever played the original NES version, you know that the game can be beaten in 40 minutes or less, but it took me 4 hours to beat Remastered, even on the easy setting. Part of the length comes from the cutscenes, which I'll get to in a minute, and the other part comes from the increased difficulty. I think because you can now save the game, WayForward decided to frustrate the player with harder boss patterns and cheaper deaths. I mean, look at this. cutscenes are the main reason for the increase in length. Also, they kill enemies for some reason. With the help of much of the original cast, these diversions perfectly capture the spirit of the original show.
Ruling might of a spear.
This is Launchpad! Mr. McD! Come in! Mr.
Launchpad, what was that?
Nothing, boss. I'm sure nobody was using that tree anyway.
Cuss me, Hilts. Me money bin alarm. Quick, Duckworth, get the limo.
I shall, get her in gear, sir.
Hurry, Duckworth, hurry!
The pedal is to the metal, Mr. McDonald.
Whack-a-Rudy! Those must be the voices that Miner was talking about.
Same as you, Scroogey. Trying to corner a new segment of the dairy market.
Please, save compliments for garden party.
What garden party?
The one I will throw in celebration when I get home with lost coin. So long, fools!
Oh, why not? I'm in a generous mood today. In fact, each of you can even get a cone with ice cream in it.
They even went so far as to make a few of the level stories eerily similar to individual episodes of the show. Play the Himalayas and African Mines levels, and then look up the episodes The Lost Crown of Genghis Khan and Earthquake. Just trust me. The best part of the game, however, is the soundtrack. Jake Kaufman, aka Vert, did a great job remixing the original's tunes, and even threw in a few new compositions. Bad news though, as of November 2013, it is not available for sale, which is a real shame because the NES soundtrack has kind of a dearth of remixes, and the soundtrack makes a great remix album. All in all though, this game is recommended, and unlike the album Long Tall Weekend by They Might Be Giants, this game is now widely available on physical media, much to Jason Lamb's chagrin. Last minute update! As I was putting together this video, Capcom released a patch for DuckTales Remastered, fixing many of the problems, including an improved pogo jump that more closely resembles the NES and Game Boy versions, and an option to skip all the cutscenes from the get-go. So now I can give the game an even higher recommendation than before. If the newest iteration of DuckTales is dubbed Remastered, then I would dub the NES version DuckTales Revered. It's a classic and comes highly recommended. I would dub the Game Boy version DuckTales Remixed, because it is almost entirely not unlike the original, with a few enhancements, and it's recommended, if only for a new challenge to veteran players. Here's hoping for DuckTales 2 Remastered. Ta-ta for now.